My name is Kelsey Bennett. I am 32, and when I returned from a 5-day business trip to Seattle, I expected the worst thing waiting for me to be an overflowing inbox. Instead, the detached garage at my father's house was empty. My dream sports car, the one I had rebuilt, insured, and protected for years, was gone. Inside, my father, my stepmother, and my younger sister were drinking champagne beside two designer suitcases. I asked where my car was. My father lifted his glass and sneered. "Thanks to your car, our daughter is having the time of her life." My sister laughed. "It was always supposed to be mine." I looked at the wire transfer receipt on the counter, checked the alerts on my phone, and chuckled. "What's so funny?" she snapped. I smiled. "Want to hear a secret?" Their faces changed before I said another word. "Before I reveal what they had actually sold, tell me what time it is where you are and what city you are watching from. I want to know how far this family secret travels." 5 years earlier, the Viper had been nothing more than a faded photograph tucked inside one of my mother's storage boxes. Rachel Bennett had taken that picture at a Denver auto show when I was 14. She had written on the back, "One day, build the life that lets you choose your own road." She never promised me the car. She gave me something more useful: permission to want difficult things. My father, Grant Bennett, saw my interests differently. He called cars an expensive distraction and told me practical women chose stable offices, predictable hours, and hobbies that did not require grease under their fingernails. Mom died before I finished my degree in experiential design, and after Grant married Elaine, every discussion about my future became a comparison with their daughter, Madison. Madison was 6 years younger, effortlessly charming, and treated every new interest as an emergency the household needed to finance. When I needed professional lighting equipment for my first freelance installation, Grant said, adulthood meant solving my own problems. 2 months later, he bought Madison a full video production package because she wanted to become a travel creator. I worked nights building convention displays and spent weekends repairing old motorcycles for extra money. Madison changed college programs 3 times, abandoned each one, and was praised for finding herself. When I opened Aperture Root Studios in a converted warehouse outside Denver, Grant promised to attend the launch. He canceled that morning because Madison had been invited to a rooftop brand party and needed someone to drive her. Elaine sent flowers with a card reminding me that successful families shared opportunities. That was her polite way of saying my savings, contacts, tools, and time belonged to everyone whenever Madison wanted them. The only person who never treated my ambition like a family utility was Marcus Hale. We met while assembling an interactive transportation exhibit for a technology conference. He understood fabrication, logistics, and contracts better than anyone I knew. I understood visual storytelling and mechanical design. Within a year, we became business partners. Aperture Root created launch films, traveling exhibits, and live brand experiences for transportation and outdoor companies. Our work looked glamorous on a screen, but most days involved loading docs, 12-hour builds, insurance certificates, and obsessive planning. Marcus and I earned every client slowly. The Viper appeared during our 3rd year. A specialty insurer was liquidating damaged promotional vehicles, including a red 2013 SRT Viper GTS with smoke damage, ruined electronics, and a neglected interior. Most bidders saw a liability. I saw the shape from Mom's photograph. Marcus warned me that emotion was not a budget. I agreed, produced a restoration plan, and invested my inheritance through the company instead of buying the car personally. Aperture Root purchased it as a business asset. We rebuilt it over 18 months with help from certified technicians, documented every part, and used the finished car in campaign shoots and trade show displays. It became our most recognizable prop and a symbol of what our studio could create from something dismissed as unusable. Ethan Brooks entered my life after the restoration was nearly complete. He was a structural engineer who reviewed rigging plans for one of our installations. He admired the Viper, but he never tried to claim expertise he did not have. On our third date, he asked whether the car represented freedom or grief. I told him it was both. He remembered that answer. Madison became interested only after photographs of the Viper began appearing in industry magazines. She asked to borrow it for a weekend campaign. I refused because she was not approved by our insurer, had no experience with high-performance vehicles, and had once returned Elaine's borrowed SUV with a crushed side mirror while insisting the damage had already been there. Grant accused me of being jealous of Madison's audience. Then he brought up a promise he had made when she was 12. He had once told her that someday he would buy her a sports car. Over time, Madison transformed that casual promise into a family debt and my Viper into its payment. By then, Grant had also started asking whether the company would collapse without me, whether Marcus could sign documents alone, and whether business property became personal property after depreciation. Each question sounded harmless separately. Together, they formed the outline of a plan. At a summer barbecue in Fort Collins, she cornered me beside the garage and asked again. I said no, clearly and calmly. Later, while I was helping Elaine carry dishes inside, Madison slipped back outside and photographed the VIN plate through the windshield. I did not discover that photograph until weeks later, buried in an access log attached to a request for a duplicate title. By the time the Seattle presentation appeared on my calendar, Madison had stopped asking for the Viper directly. That should have reassured me. Instead, it made me pay closer attention. Aperture Route had been shortlisted to create a national launch experience for an aviation technology company. Winning the account could double our annual revenue and move us from regional work into permanent contracts. The final pitch required me to spend 5 days in Seattle with the client's design and procurement teams. The timing created a storage problem. Mandatory fire suppression maintenance required every vehicle to leave our warehouse for 48 hours. Marcus secured client equipment elsewhere, but the Viper could not clear the available ramps, and Ethan's apartment garage had no space. Grant heard me discussing the problem during a family dinner and immediately offered his detached garage in Fort Collins. It was enclosed, alarmed, and less than 20 minutes from our warehouse. I hesitated. He acted offended. You trust strangers with million-dollar exhibits, he said, but you cannot trust your own father with a car for 2 nights? I explained that the issue was insurance, not trust. Still, refusing would create another argument before my flight. I accepted after our insurer approved the address. The questions started almost immediately. Grant asked where the title was stored, in case someone needed proof during an emergency. Madison texted asking for my exact return flight. Elaine wanted to know whether the company owned the car or whether it was really mine underneath the paperwork. The next morning, one of our administrators told me a woman had called pretending to be my assistant and asking how to request a duplicate vehicle title. I checked the company access history. Someone using Madison's email address had attempted to open the Viper's digital asset file. The login failed because she lacked permission. My first instinct was to confront her. Marcus stopped me. He reminded me that accusations would produce denial, deleted messages, and a week of relatives demanding peace. Evidence would produce choices. Rebecca Sloan, our business attorney, kept the valid original title because it supported a restoration financing agreement. The copy Grant had seen was obsolete and marked accordingly, although someone could crop the warning from a photograph. We created safeguards without announcing them. Marcus confirmed that only the 2 of us could authorize a company asset sale. I activated the concealed tracker beneath the rear interior panel. Our technician installed a cloud-connected camera in the detached garage with Grant's written approval, presented as a condition of the insurer's temporary storage endorsement. The camera recorded the vehicle bay and uploaded footage automatically. Marcus received movement alerts. Rebecca preserved the suspicious access log and instructed our staff to forward any title inquiries directly to her. When I delivered the Viper to Grant's garage, he smiled too widely and asked for the keys. I gave him the transport key, which started the car but did not unlock the encrypted document case stored at our office. Madison appeared with her phone already recording. "Say goodbye to my future car," she joked. I looked directly into her camera. "This vehicle belongs to Aperture Root Studios. You do not have permission to drive, move, sell, photograph for commercial use, or represent ownership of it." Her smile tightened. Grant told me not to be dramatic. During my first 2 days in Seattle, he sent cheerful updates saying the car had not moved. Madison posted vague messages about an opportunity that would change her life and a luxury retreat she deserved after years of building her brand. Elaine liked every post. My presentation succeeded. The aviation company requested contract revisions, and a national events network immediately offered an exclusive follow-up meeting. Back in Colorado, Grant contacted Victor Lang, a specialty car buyer in Salt Lake City, whom Madison had met through a sponsored event. Grant claimed I needed a rapid sale to support business expansion. He said I had authorized him to negotiate, that the low price reflected a private family arrangement, and that the original title would be transferred electronically after payment. Madison supplied photographs, an altered authorization letter, and an inspection report copied from our records. Victor agreed to pay $120,000. He wired the money after a commercial transporter collected the car. Part of the transfer paid for Madison's week-long luxury getaway in Cabo. Another portion covered Grant and Elaine's overdue accounts. The rest moved through Madison's business account so she could call it sponsorship revenue. At the exact moment Grant watched the transporter pull away, I was presenting revised pricing to the most important client of my career. Marcus received the movement alert first. The tracker showed the Viper heading west on Interstate 70 toward Utah. He called me twice. I silenced my phone and finished the negotiation. I saw Marcus's missed calls after the final contract meeting. The client had accepted our revised scope, but one look at my phone erased the celebration. Marcus answered before the first ring completed. "The Viper is moving toward Utah on a commercial carrier. Grant did not call us. Nobody at the company authorized anything." I opened the tracking app. The car had already crossed the Colorado line. Rebecca joined the call and told me not to contact my family. During the next hour, Marcus downloaded the garage footage, movement history, access logs, and insurance endorsement. Rebecca preserved the title inquiry and every message claiming the car was safe. The garage camera showed the entire removal. Grant opened the door for the transporter. Madison filmed the loading process while Elaine stood beside her. At one point, the driver asked who owned the car. Grant answered, "My daughter, but I handle her business matters." No one corrected him. I changed my return flight and landed in Denver the following afternoon without warning anyone. Ethan met me at the airport, but I asked him to stay outside Grant's house unless I needed him. This confrontation belonged to me. The detached garage was empty. Inside, Grant, Elaine, and Madison drank champagne beside Madison's designer luggage for Cabo. A printed wire transfer receipt rested on the kitchen counter, as though displaying it made the sale legitimate. I asked where the Viper was. Grant lifted his glass. "Thanks to your car, our daughter is having the time of her life." Madison smiled as if she had won a contest I had refused to enter. "It was always supposed to be mine." Elaine added that I could restore another car. She said Madison's career depended on visibility, while my company was already successful. In her mind, taking from me was not loss. It was redistribution. I checked my phone. The tracking alert remained active. Marcus had sent the archived video. Rebecca had forwarded a rejection notice from the Utah Motor Vehicle Office. The buyer's first title application had failed because the submitted ownership data did not match the state record. I chuckled. Madison's smile disappeared. "What's so funny?" I placed my phone on the counter. "Want to hear a secret?" Grant lowered his glass. The Viper did not belong to me personally. It belonged to Aperture Root Studios. Marcus and I were co-owners, and both signatures were legally required. Grant had attempted to sell a company asset partly owned by someone outside the family. Next, I explained that the document he copied was obsolete. Rebecca held the valid title. The duplicate title request had been flagged before I left Seattle. The buyer's application had already been rejected. Madison interrupted. "You are bluffing. The money cleared." "Money moving does not make the transaction legal," I said. Then I showed them the tracker. A red point marked the carrier's route toward Salt Lake City. Grant's face tightened when he realized I had known where the car was before entering the house. Finally, I played the garage recording. His own voice filled the kitchen. "Kelsey will complain, but she always folds when family is involved. Once Madison leaves, she will not risk humiliating us." The next clip was Madison's. "Once the money is divided, she cannot undo it without ruining Dad." Elaine whispered her name, but Madison did not look at her. That sentence destroyed the defense they had not yet presented. Madison could no longer claim she believed the sale was authorized. She knew I would object. She had planned to make the consequences emotionally expensive enough that I would surrender. Grant reached for my phone. "Delete that recording." I moved it behind me. "It is already backed up in 3 places." The front door opened. Marcus entered with Ethan behind him. Grant immediately turned toward Ethan, ignoring me. "Talk sense into her," he demanded. "This is a family matter." Ethan's expression did not change. "The company and the car belong to Kelsey and Marcus. You should speak to their attorney." Grant looked offended that another man would not overrule me for him. Marcus placed a folder beside the wire receipt. It contained the LLC registration, insurance documents, and preserved screenshots. "We did not authorize a sale," he said. "You used our records to create false documents." Madison grabbed her luggage handle. "I have a flight." "No one is stopping you," I said, "but leaving will not erase your emails." My phone rang. The Utah number matched the contact Rebecca had found in the failed application. I answered on speaker. A man introduced himself as Victor Lang. His voice was controlled, but fear sat beneath every word. "The motor vehicle office says the title documents may be false. I need to know whether I bought a stolen vehicle." Grant lunged for the phone. I stepped away and looked directly at him. For the first time since I entered the house, nobody was smiling. I asked Victor to secure the Viper and not move, inspect, advertise, or transfer it until our attorneys spoke. I did not accuse him of knowingly buying stolen property. His cooperation mattered more than my anger. Rebecca confirmed that Aperture Root owned the vehicle, Grant lacked authority, and the documents conflicted with official records. Victor agreed to preserve every message, receipt, photograph, and recording. He also sent her Madison's altered authorization letter. Grant waited until the call ended, then began trying to reduce the theft into a disagreement. "You have the car's location," he said. "Nobody has lost anything." Marcus pointed at the transfer receipt. $120,000 changed hands. A buyer received false documents. Our company asset crossed state lines without permission. Several people have already lost something. Elaine explained that Madison's Cabo retreat was a networking opportunity that could save her career. Grant added that I was financially secure while the family home was struggling. Public action would embarrass everyone, and he claimed he intended to repay the company after Madison secured sponsors. I asked the only question that mattered. "Where is the money?" Nobody answered immediately. Under Rebecca's pressure, the distribution emerged. Nearly $30,000 paid for Madison's luxury package, excursions, wardrobe, and production. Grant kept $10,000 as a transaction fee. Elaine used more than $20,000 for overdue cards and property taxes. $45,000 entered Madison's business account as campaign revenue. Fees consumed more. Less than 15,000 remained untouched in the original account. Madison insisted she had only introduced Victor. I opened the email Rebecca had forwarded and read the sentence beneath Madison's signature. Kelsey Bennett has authorized Grant Bennett to negotiate and execute the sale on behalf of Aperture Root Studios. That is not an introduction, I said. That is a false authorization. Her face hardened. You were never going to help me. I was never obligated to finance you. Elaine began calling relatives before I left the house. By the time Ethan drove me back to Denver, my phone was filling with messages from people who believed I had offered the Viper to support Madison and then changed my mind. According to their version, Grant had misunderstood a casual promise. The car had been stored on his property, and I was threatening my own father over paperwork. My aunt, Patricia Dawson, called the next morning and demanded that I handle the situation privately. She said Grant had made a foolish choice but did not deserve to have his life destroyed. I did not argue. I sent her 4 files: the LLC ownership record, Madison's false authorization, a short garage clip of Grant discussing my expected surrender, and the payment trail Rebecca had reconstructed. Patricia called back 20 minutes later. Her voice had changed. I did not know it was this deliberate. Then she asked me not to destroy him. I am not doing that, I said. I am deciding whether to protect what he chose to endanger. Other relatives received nothing. I refused to conduct a family trial through group messages. Anyone demanding explanations was directed to Rebecca. Anyone insulting me was blocked. Madison, meanwhile, refused to cancel Cabo. She boarded her flight that evening and posted a champagne photograph from the airport lounge. Her caption said no one could stop what was meant for her. Rebecca met with Marcus and me the following morning. She listed our options without dramatizing them. We could demand the vehicle's return, seek repayment, notify the insurer, file a stolen vehicle report, pursue civil damages, and allow investigators to determine whether criminal charges were supported. Each option carried costs. Doing nothing carried more. Grant arrived at our office uninvited before the meeting ended. He begged for 48 hours to recover the money privately. He promised to sell personal assets and pressure Madison to refund the trip. He wanted one agreement in return: no police report. I asked whether he had contacted Victor to admit the truth. No, he said. That would complicate everything. It was the clearest answer he gave me. Even then, he was not trying to repair the damage. He was trying to control who knew. Rebecca offered a narrow deadline for voluntary repayment, but she warned that the company's insurer had its own requirements. The carrier had already opened a claim after receiving the tracker and title information. Because the vehicle had been intentionally removed and transported across state lines, the insurer would not continue coordinating recovery without a formal report from the LLC. Marcus looked at me. He had invested labor, money, and years of credibility into the Viper. Grant's decisions had endangered his property, too. My family expected me to treat Marcus's loss as acceptable collateral for keeping them comfortable. Grant leaned across Rebecca's conference table. Kelsey, once you sign that report, you cannot take it back. He meant it as a warning. I heard it as permission to stop carrying responsibility for his decisions. Rebecca placed the form in front of me. I looked at Grant and signed. Once the report was filed, the situation stopped being a family argument. The Viper became evidence, the wire became disputed proceeds, and every person involved had to answer questions from people Grant could not charm at a dinner table. Utah authorities confirmed the Viper at Victor's secured facility. Our insurer arranged an independent inspection while investigators verified ownership and transport records. Victor cooperated without any hesitation because his money was at risk, and the failed title application showed he had been deceived. He provided the transporter invoice, payment instructions, altered letter, and voice messages in which Grant promised my later approval. Madison learned at the Cabo Resort that her account had been restricted during review. She returned days early and accused me of humiliating her abroad. I reminded her that she had traveled with disputed money after knowing the sale was unauthorized. She offered no answer. Grant tried an explanation every week. He claimed he thought I owned the Viper, then claimed I had given verbal permission. The LLC record and garage footage contradicted both stories. He challenged the camera until Rebecca produced his approval. He blamed Madison for the authorization letter until Victor supplied messages showing Grant reviewed it. Finally, he offered to repay only the retreat cost, as though the transaction belonged to strangers. Elaine presented herself as an innocent spouse. Bank statements showed she used more than $20,000 from the proceeds. The garage footage captured her asking whether enough would remain to cover their property taxes. Her participation was quieter than Grant's, but silence had not kept her uninvolved. Rebecca prepared a civil demand covering more than the return of the purchase price. Victor needed his funds restored. Aperture Route had transportation, inspection, legal, and insurance expenses. We lost 2 promotional appearances because our signature vehicle was unavailable. A client postponed a campaign shoot. The transporter had scraped the underside and damaged a wheel during loading. Every consequence carried an invoice. Grant wanted the numbers reduced because he considered our business losses theoretical. Marcus brought the canceled contracts to mediation and placed them in front of him. These clients did not cancel theoretically, Marcus said. To raise money, Grant sold his fishing boat and a collection of vintage dealership signs. Elaine sold jewelry and emptied a personal investment account. They refinanced the Fort Collins house, but the remaining shortage forced them to list it. Madison liquidated what remained in her business account, sold designer items online, and surrendered future sponsorship payments toward restitution. The Viper returned to Colorado 6 weeks after it disappeared. I watched the enclosed carrier enter our warehouse lot and felt relief so sharp it almost resembled grief. The inspection found minor transport damage, no major mechanical loss, and no evidence Victor had driven it. We repaired the wheel, underbody panel, and paint protection film. I did not take the first drive. Marcus did. The car belonged to both of us, and my family had spent years pretending his ownership disappeared whenever it interfered with their story. Handing him the keys was a small correction that mattered. We also changed the company's name. Aperture Route had once carried a visual mark built from the Bennett family crest Grant liked to display at dealership events. I no longer wanted his symbolism attached to our work. We became Northline Experience Works, with a new logo, new contracts, and no reference to him. Grant's employer suspended him after learning that he had used dealership contacts and his work account to arrange the false sale. The company reviewed its conduct policies, his messages, and Victor's complaint before dismissing him. The decision followed documented misuse of access, not accusation alone. Madison lost 2 brand agreements when she could not explain why disputed money had entered her business account as campaign revenue. She posted a vague video about being targeted by a jealous relative and surviving financial abuse. That brought another wave of calls and messages to me. I published nothing. Madison wanted an online argument because attention was where she regained control. I would not provide statements, footage, or emotional reactions for her content again. Investigators interviewed everyone, reviewed the records, and separated judgment from deliberate participation. Victor remained a cooperating buyer. Elaine was financially responsible for the money she used, while Madison faced a separate resolution tied to the false authorization and disputed funds. Grant's attorney eventually negotiated an agreement. Grant accepted reduced charges, supervised probation, restitution, and community service, rather than risk trial. Madison accepted repayment requirements and strict financial conditions. None of the outcomes erased the civil agreement, our company losses, or the no-contact protections Rebecca was preparing. Before the settlement conference, Grant requested a face-to-face meeting. He claimed he needed to apologize and hoped to rebuild the family after signing. I initially refused. Rebecca said final boundaries were easier to enforce when nobody could claim confusion. I agreed only if the meeting occurred in her office, with Ethan present, and nothing discussed. Changed the terms. Grant accepted. By then, 3 months had passed since I returned from Seattle. The car was home, the company had a new name, and the people who had called me cruel were suddenly quiet. I knew the meeting would not give me the father I wanted. It could, however, become the last time he mistook access for forgiveness. 3 months after I returned from Seattle, I sat across from Grant in Rebecca's conference room. Ethan sat beside me. Rebecca remained at the head of the table with the settlement documents closed beneath one hand. Grant looked smaller without the confidence his job and house had given him. He listed everything he had lost: the dealership position, the Fort Collins property, Elaine's loyalty, Madison's income, and invitations from relatives who no longer wanted any involvement. Then he said the family had suffered enough. I waited for an apology. Instead, he asked me to remove the no-contact terms so he could call, attend my wedding, and visit Northline without lawyers involved. "Do you regret selling the car?" I asked. "Or do you regret what happened after you sold it?" He looked down at the table. "Madison needed help. You have always been stronger than she is." His answer confirmed everything. He still believed my strength obligated me to absorb Madison's choices. He did not regret taking from me. He regretted learning that I would finally stop him completely. Madison entered with Elaine. She accused me of installing the camera to trap them, called the Viper replaceable, and claimed my success earned unfair respect. Then she said, "Family should never use lawyers against family." "The camera protected records you had tried to access," I said. "Recording your choices did not force them. My success did not make my property communal, and being related did not give you access to my work, money, or forgiveness." She called me cold. "I call it clear," I replied. Elaine asked whether they would be invited to my wedding. She treated repayment as a ticket back into my life. "No. Not even after we lose the house?" "You used money from property you knew was not yours." Grant interrupted. "She is still your mother." "My mother's name was Rachel." The room went still. Elaine used that title for authority, while treating Rachel's inheritance as family capital. Correcting her felt like setting down a weight. Rebecca opened the settlement. All communication would pass through her office. Grant, Elaine, and Madison could not enter my home, workplace, events, or client functions, contact employees or customers, or use my name, image, business, or Viper online. There would be no wedding invitation, private visit, holiday exception, or reconsideration. Grant pushed the papers away. "You are making this permanent." "Yes." "What kind of daughter does that?" "The kind who finally believes your actions." Rebecca explained refusal would return the case to court. Grant's attorney whispered. He signed, and Elaine followed. Madison argued that repayment should earn forgiveness. I told her forgiveness was not an invoice, and access was not a reward for returning what she should never have taken. She signed hard enough to tear the paper beneath. When the meeting ended, Grant waited near the elevator. "Kelsey," he said, "I am still your dad." For years, that sentence had ended every argument and excused unequal treatment, broken promises, and demands disguised as duty. This would be my last answer. "You were my father," I said. "You decided what that meant." I walked past him. In the parking garage, I blocked all 3 accounts. Rebecca's office remained their only channel. Grant and Elaine moved into a rental near Colorado Springs, their marriage strained by blame. Madison took an administrative job with a hotel group, and part of every paycheck went toward restitution. She attempted 2 indirect messages through relatives. I returned both unopened, documented the contact, and the attempts stopped. Northline completed the national aviation contract and signed the events partnership that began in Seattle. Marcus and I hired 6 employees, expanded the fabrication floor, and made the recovered Viper the centerpiece of our first national campaign. The message focused on restoration, verified ownership, and the discipline required to protect valuable work. Ethan and I married at an art center overlooking the Front Range. Marcus, our employees, friends, and relatives who respected my boundaries attended. Nobody from Grant's household received an invitation. There was no empty table, dramatic arrival, or last-minute reconciliation for anyone. On the morning after the campaign launch, I drove the Viper west before sunrise. I stopped at the mountain overlook where my mother had taken me after that auto show when I was 14. I carried the faded photograph in the glove compartment. For a long time, I believed protecting myself would feel like winning. It did not. Ending contact cost me the family I had hoped they might become. I grieved people who were still alive, and a future that had never truly existed. But pain did not make the boundary wrong. Keeping them close solely because we shared a name would have taught them that every limit was temporary, every consequence negotiable, and every possession available if they created enough pressure. The Viper's engine settled into a steady idle as the sky brightened over the mountains. Mom's note remained on the back of the photograph. Build the life that lets you choose your own road. That was exactly what I had done. Grant sold the car because he believed I would always choose family over consequences. He was wrong. I recovered the Viper, rebuilt my company, and never spoke to him, Elaine, or Madison again.